RJ Story Guy back, and today we're going to start something. We're going to take the next chapter, which is chapter 30, and break it up into three parts because it's a rather long chapter. It's a story that Nurside is telling, but he originally learned it from his mentor in storytelling, Nikolai. This story concerns Teresa, and if you'll recall, way back at the beginning of our story, the sibilant voice in the darkness that first talked to Don when he was in his little casita told him this story of this woman many generations ago who grew up in Peralta and then through her dreams communicated with her sisters in kind in the Valle Bajo, Pia and Pita. Well, this is the same Teresa, but this is some years later. So let's pick up the story, Teresa and the Sorai Plague, chapter 30. In Valle Bajo, there had not been a plague in many generations. By following the hygiene taught by the curanderas, the spread of any sickness was usually kept to one individual, sometimes a family. Neither a clan nor a whole village had suffered the pain, the putrid bleeding, and the strangling of breath a plague could bring. Then the drowning plague swept like wildfire among the beings of the valley. Those infected would first feel an insatiable thirst for several hours with heavy sweating, then urination that burned and would not stop. The more water one drank, the more urination. After 5 days, the ability to urinate stopped, and the person would begin to swell. The lungs filled with so much fluid they literally would drown. Sometimes swollen arms and legs would be lanced to release accumulated fluid, but there was no stopping the drowning in the lungs. When one started sweating, they were as good as dead. After several weeks, brought by Pia and Pita's reports of the tragedy, Teresa came on her first visit from the other valley since the plague had started. Only a couple of winters had passed since the sisters had begun traveling between the valleys. Strangely, Teresa claimed it had only been one winter, or a little more than that. So there seemed to be a difference between the valleys no one understood. Anyway, on their first adventure, the three traveled the valle asking questions, tracing the plague to its first signs. It began with a Turman farmer who had traded dried red chilies for Sorai goat cheese. From that point, it spread to his family and other farmers. Then a bat who had sampled Sorai goat cheese caught it. Yet others had eaten that cheese and suffered no ill effects. Even after the plague started, some cheese proved harmless. Teresa, not knowing the reputation of the Sorais, insisted on going to their village with her sisters. No one visited the Sorais unless in a slave cage. Nevertheless, they went, and so began a confrontation that has been handed down word for word. The sight of the black-haired curandera who stood so straight and was nearly as tall as the Sorais caused quite a stir among the clanspeople. Nurside interrupted. Don, you may wonder how she was so tall for one who was very much like the Peralts. No one knows, but it's my idea she seemed tall because of her character and standing among the Valle people. I don't think they saw her as being so tall at first, but to get back to Nikolai's story. So, Teresa caused quite a stir as she made her way across the valley and up the narrow trail to the top of the Il Serrohe cliffs. The Valle's residents' curiosity was so aroused, they followed by the hundreds. Only a weak challenge came from Sorai watchguards. Get back, you stinking little rats and bugs! You're wandering into forbidden territory, the guards shrieked, their bells jangling angrily. But no one paid any attention, and the guards did no more than threw a few rocks, missing their mark by so much it was obviously no accident. Of course, if things got desperate, everyone knew the Sorais could slaughter the crowd once they reached the mesas atop the cliffs. Word spread fast, and the tall curandera and her followers were met by the entire population of Sorais once they reached the outskirts of the village. The chief Sorai priest, no less, greeted her, his bells tolling a complex chord and a howling chant in the ancient tongue of the Sorais. No one had a clue what it meant, but it didn't sound friendly. When he stopped, the Sorais hooted and cheered, clattering their bells and stirring up a terrific odor. The valley people were ready to call it quits after that, but the towering Curandera seemed unimpressed and stood her ground. She stepped forward and looked the chief priest nearly in the eye, since she was the tallest of all Sorais. "I am Teresa of Peralta, a village in another place of the valle that you do not know. But this you will know. If the drowning plague is a deliberate attempt on your part to terrorize and conquer the valle people, you will suffer greatly for it." The chief priest twisted his thin lips into a deeper than normal sneer. "Goat shit. You're just a tall, uppity Peralta who has drunk too much corn beer. You come to us with lies and stupid threats because you wish to die in a spectacular way. We know nothing of this drowning plague, and even if we did, you could do nothing about it. Do your curing and get out of here before you all die painfully. Our warriors are ready to practice on the real thing." "So you deny causing the plague that has been associated with the eating of goat cheese you traded with the farmers in the valle?" Teresa showed no restraint in light of the priest's very real threat. "Deny? Deny? I don't have to deny or confirm anything to the likes of you. We don't suffer any such disease, and we live on our goat cheese. If the people of the valle are so feeble they cannot stomach a good, strong cheese, then we're better off without them. But I'll tell you this. If we were to deliberately exterminate the scum of the valley, we would do it barehanded, not with some sheep shit plague. Some of you just can't handle strong cheese." Teresa squinted as she assessed the priest and the acolytes clustered behind him. She scanned the crowd of Sorais who met her gaze with cold hatred. There was no evidence of deception, no sense of lying from any of them. "I believe you," she said simply. The crowd behind her loudly murmured their disagreement. She swept around and gave them the same squinty-eyed look. They quieted immediately. "If I sense lying, I would say so. I have no fear of these tall, snake-like beings." Taking that as a compliment, the priest softened his expression and nodded towards Teresa as she gazed at him. "You can all turn around and leave before we forget our manners and murder the lot of you," he announced. "Not yet," said Teresa. "You may not have intended harm, but there still may be a problem with the cheese. Perhaps it contains something new, or there's a new way of curing it, or someone handling the cheese-making hasn't the experience of her elders. Who knows? If you'll show me your goats, the people who make the cheese, and how they make it, perhaps we can clear up this problem." The priest's look quickly turned to rage. "The only problem is you and your presence here. We do not entertain valle guests in our village unless they arrive in slave cages. You will have to take this up with our chief. I am the chief priest and cannot decide such a thing." He turned to one of the acolytes, ordering him to bring the chief. "No need, Friar Fang!" rang out a voice accompanied by a low-pitched bells. The crowd of Sorais parted, and Deadeye the chief approached. He regarded Teresa and the valle crowd as he would a heaping platter of freshly grilled meat. "I have been informed of this intrusion, and I think the good friar is too kind to suggest slavery, though perhaps the stronger men and more attractive women of your herd can provide a healthy income for the Sorais the next time we trade with those from the far west. The rest of you can die." Teresa regarded Deadeye with the same lack of deference she had shown the chief priest, Friar Fang. "Are you ready for a war with the entire valle over the matter of a little bad cheese?" she asked smoothly. "We do not allow anyone free access to our village or our activities, particularly the making of goat cheese, since it is one of our main sources of trade with the scum of the valley. Should they discover how to make their own cheese, we will have to return to full-time slave trade." "Would you get a hold of yourself and let me finish what I'm trying to say?" Teresa asked, as if she were addressing a naughty child. Deadeye stood scowling and bit his lower lip savagely. His bells tinkled tentatively. "Thank you," she said. "I'm not suggesting you open up your village to the entire valley. I can look for myself. I personally have no knowledge of cheese-making, but as a curandera I can spot an unhealthy situation. Besides, you want to keep trading cheese, don't you? Right now, no one wants anything to do with your stinking goat cheese." At this point, the priest started to grumble. "If any unhealthy situation exists," she continued quickly, not allowing any interruption, "who knows? It may be something the people of the valley are doing with the cheese once they get it. But I can't know that unless I start at the beginning, and that means you and your people. I will divulge no clan secrets." We aren't a scurvy clan, and how can I trust anything you have said?" the chief hissed. "Just so I can sense your honesty as well. Surely a wise one such as you can sense my truthfulness. Or are you that easily fooled?" He cast a sideways look at the priest, the acolytes, and nearby Sorais. He could not afford to admit to such a thing in front of them. "You're right," he announced. "And so I will deny you any more access to our village and lands. In fact, you have already condemned yourself to slavery by coming this far with that rabble following you." At his signal, Sorai warriors swarmed forward, grabbing Teresa and several of those immediately behind her. And there we're going to break it off. Now, don't get mad at me. Next part's coming soon. We'll see what happens next as the story of Teresa and the Sorai plague continues. Until then, bye.